Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and those who don't identify as either, you are listening to a bonus episode of Ratchet and Respectable. If you missed our traditional Wednesday episode, please give it a listen, especially if you loved Forever on Netflix. I interviewed one of the directors that worked on the show, Tembi Banks. She did 2 episodes. She and I had a really amazing conversation full of spoilers about storylines, plot points, characters. We really delved in to talk about Forever. It is one of my favorite series of the last year or so. So if you loved Forever, you want to hear a discussion about it, please tune in to the Ratchet and Respectable regular episode that dropped on Wednesday. It's called Forever Ever. We did not mention Diddy on that episode. I'm trying to do a separation of, I don't want to say church and state, but like the Diddy trial and everything else, because the Diddy trial, there's so much going on that it will overshadow everything else. And I don't want to do that. But before we delve into the last, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of the Diddy trial, I just want to go over very, very quickly the grand jury indictment, because after 11 days of this trial, I still see people saying, where's the RICO? And I'm like, do you actually understand what RICO is? You may not. So let's just go over the grand jury charges very, very, very quickly, so we're all operating with the same understanding. First and foremost, the racketeering conspiracy. The United States government is alleging that there is an enterprise, Combs Enterprise, so AKA Bad Boy, the place where the money comes from, essentially. It says that the enterprise engaged in activities which affected interstate and foreign commerce. Money from the enterprise was spent on criminal shit that happened in more than one state. So Diddy likes to bounce between New York, LA, and Miami. That's 3 cities and 3 different states, interstate. And then also foreign commerce. A couple people have testified about things that went on in France. France is the one that sticks in the top of my head, but I think there's at least one other country. All you need is one. It says persons employed by and associated with the Combs Enterprise. We've heard several of Diddy's assistants testify. I think 3 so far, plus a stylist. To varying degrees, I think all of them have testified to some form of felony. So it says that these people, these employees and these associates knowingly combined, conspired, confederated, and agreed together and with each other to violate the racketeering laws of the United States. All you need is Diddy and one assistant, or Diddy and his security. Because a lot of times security just don't do shit. Like Diddy's doing crazy shit and security is just sort of standing there. Non-action is an action. And let's also very quickly go through what the federal government is defining as RICO for this case. They've got about 7 or 8 that they've singled out. So multiple acts involving kidnapping, multiple acts involving arson, multiple acts involving bribery, tampering with a witness, victim, or informant, forced labor, sex trafficking, transportation and inducement to travel for purposes of prostitution and other illegal activities. Multiple offenses involving the possession with intent to distribute or distribution of narcotics and controlled substances, including, they have a long list of drugs. Every time that one of Diddy's assistants, there have been 3 so far, I think, and all 3 of them have testified that at some point they went to get drugs for Diddy, whether it was running back to the hotel to pick up drugs to give to somebody else, or on vacation, Diddy was like, hey, I need you to get me XYZ. Or even in one case, I think the first male escort that testified, he said that, he would show up sober for the freak offs, and then, Diddy would give him drugs. Distribution. I think when people hear distribution, they think like, oh, like Avon, like Stringer. Like, no, it could just be you literally like handing somebody a pill. Distribution. Also, there's a notice of special sentencing factor here. It specifically singles out that Diddy, the defendant, agreed to, in affecting interstate and foreign commerce, did knowingly recruit, entice, harbor, transport, provide, obtain, advertise, maintain, patronize, and solicit by any means a person knowing and in reckless disregard of the fact that means of force, threats of force, fraud, and coercion, and any combination of such means would be used to cause the person to engage in a commercial sex act in violation of blah, 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 blah. Translation. If he knowingly recruited, say, signed an artist to his Bad Boy label, harbored, transport, provide, if you put them up and paid for them, right? And then you used force. Say you were beating them on a regular basis. Say you made threats of force. Say you were threatening to beat them. You were threatening to release sex tapes of them, calling their mother, extorting her for $20,000. If you were breaking into her home, if you were hitting her with a frying pan or dragging her by the hair, if you were telling this person that you were going to take care of their music career, that you were going to put albums out for them, and you never did, despite them recording like 9 albums worth of music, fraud. If you did any of those things or any combination of those things, and they were done to cause the person to engage in a commercial sex act, say like a freak off, then you would be in violation of Title 18, United States Code, blah, 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 blah. People are like, where's the RICO? There's the RICO. So yeah, so when people are like, what RICO? I was like, either you're not following the case in full or you don't have a full understanding of what RICO is. So that's why I'm reading these charges to you. The second charge here, count 2, is sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion. It's essentially the same thing I read to you under the notice of special sentencing factor. Basically forcing somebody to engage in commercial sex acts. So again, the freak offs. Count 3, transportation to engage in prostitution. Of all the things, people are like, but RICO. And I was like, the RICO has been proven several times over at this point, and we're only halfway through the prosecution's witnesses. Transportation to engage in prostitution. So Cassie identified several men that Diddy would fly around to different places. The prosecution showed her pictures and she said, oh yeah, this was so-and-so, and we would see him in this city, this city, this city, this city, this city, this city. So far, the escorts that have testified, I think they were both New York based, and they haven't yet said anything about travel. I assume that the prosecution is going to call additional escorts. All you need is one of them to back up what Cassie said is like, yes, my name is so-and-so, and I had sex with them in New York and Miami as well. Then that's proving count 3 right there. All right, let's get into the testimony. I'm going to run through this relatively quickly because we have so much to cover. And again, I said this last episode, I cover the Diddy trial every single day on social media, on my Instagram and on Threads at Demetria L. Lucas. So if you don't want to wait for like a random bonus episode, you want to know day to day what's going on, just the facts, you can follow my coverage on Threads or on Instagram. All right, just pulled up day 6. And my day 6 coverage is sourced from CNN, USA Today, and the Washington Post. And thank you to the woman who wrote in and was like, it's not Don Richard, it's Don Richard. She got Haitian in her family. Thank you. Diddy day 6. So this is Monday of last week. Last week was short. This week is too. For Memorial Day, the judge gave the jury Friday of last week and Monday of this week off. So on Monday, Don Richard was continuing her testimony from the previous Friday. She testifies that she, quote unquote, frequently saw Diddy attack Cassie. She says he would punch her, choke her, drag her, slap her in the mouth. She said, I saw him kick her and punch her in the stomach. She says Cassie attempted to cover her injuries with clothing, makeup, and glasses. She also notes that Diddy's security staff witnessed Cassie being beat by Diddy and they wouldn't react. She says, quote, they wouldn't do anything. Dawn says she once saw Diddy punch Cassie in the face during an argument. Another time he punched her in the stomach at a restaurant. It was at a dinner attended by Usher, Jimmy Iovine, and Neo. This detail came up in Dawn's lawsuit, I believe. Dawn testified that Cassie was embarrassed that Diddy had punched her, and she told Diddy that he shouldn't have done that. She said Diddy grabbed Cassie by the neck and popped her, slapped her in the mouth, and told her to shut up. Again, security was present and did nothing. Dawn testified Cassie could be hit for speaking up for herself or having an opinion. She said former Bad Boy executive, he was the president, Harv Pierre, assistants, Capricorn Clark, she testified yesterday. We're going to read her testimony later in the podcast. And Mia's supposed to testify tomorrow. She was also allegedly another victim of Diddy. She's also a former assistant of Diddy's. She says, as well as security staffers D-Rock and Roger Bonds all saw Cassie get hit. Dawn said she overheard Diddy and Cassie discussing Cassie's career. He would say things to her like, I own you. And she said it was always wait. Cassie had to wait her turn. Dawn told Cassie to leave Diddy. She said when Diddy found out, which I was like, how did he know? But when he found out what Dawn said, he went to Dawn and he told her to stay out of their relationship. Dawn testified that she, quote unquote, often saw Diddy take drugs, including weed, ketamine, and cocaine, no opiates. She says the drugs were delivered by a man named One Stop. His name comes up over and over and over. I wonder if One Stop's going to testify. If One Stop testifies, Lord God, that man could take down half of black entertainment. The number of people who've been telling me One Stop stories since I started covering this, One Stop is very popular. One Stop also had an Instagram page. Apparently, he recently deleted it or scrubbed the page, rather. I know the page. It said, in addition to drugs, One Stop, hence the name, also delivered pharmaceuticals, birth control, and emergency contraception. Dawn says Diddy kept his drugs in a Louis Vuitton toiletry bag. This keeps coming up too, this toiletry bag that he carried everywhere, from domestic to overseas. Dawn also saw Diddy frequently carrying a handgun. She confirmed that she never saw Diddy pull the gun out or load it with bullets. I don't have this in my notes, but I remember reading it. She said he carried it, I want to say, the small of his back. When asked, Dawn said she is not expecting compensation for her testimony. She said, quote, I'm expecting justice. Dawn also notes that in 2020, this comes up over and over again too, people who have stopped working for Diddy will call him years later trying to work with him again. And I was like, after all y'all saw, after all that man did to you, the people surviving domestic abuse, it takes them 7-8 tries to actually leave the relationship and get out and stay gone. Y'all weren't in a relationship. It was an employee situation and y'all all still trying to go back. 2020, Dawn reached out to Diddy to work together. She said she only did it to help her Dirty Money Trio member, Kalana Harper. Next on the stand, this is Carrie Morgan. She's Cassie's former bestie for 17 years. She's adamant that she does not want to be here. She says, quote, I have moved on with my life away from all these people and their problems, which I'm not mad at her. She said when she first met Cassie, Cassie didn't drink much or do drugs. I think they were teenagers when they first met. 16, I believe, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me. Carrie said she traveled with Diddy and Cassie all over the U.S. to Spain and Italy. They would all take drugs, usually provided by Diddy. RICO! She described Diddy as very nice and extremely generous, but also sort of intimidating and had a strong presence. The more she was around, she learned Diddy had mood swings and would get aggressive and upset, often yelling at Cassie. Diddy would call Cassie repeatedly until she answered him, sometimes 50 times in a row. She testified there were also times that Diddy or his employees would contact Carrie in an attempt to reach Cassie. Carrie testified Diddy assaulted Cassie on 2 occasions, adding Diddy hit Cassie, pulled her hair, kicked her, and pushed her. She testified Diddy was not intoxicated or high during these times. So, you know how the defense is like, oh, he did all this crazy shit because he was either high or he was coming off drugs, so he was irritable. And she was like, no, he was sober. Cassie said about the same thing too. She was like, I mean, that's kind of just how he was. Like, he was violent. On another occasion, Carrie said she and Cassie once left the house and hid on the stairs of a neighbor's house as Diddy and his security guard were looking for them. Diddy and the securities. Remember what I said earlier about people conspired, together and with each other to do criminal shit? The security guard goes looking for Cassie. Cassie jumps out the car trying to run away. The security guard goes and chases her down at Diddy's behest. Conspired together. RICO! Carrie saw Diddy attack Cassie in Jamaica because Cassie was taking too long in the bathroom. Jamaica, assault, RICO! She testified, I heard Cassie screaming, so I ran into the hallway where she was. She saw Diddy dragging Cassie, quote, by her hair down the hallway. That's like his favorite thing to do. Several people have said he grabbed her by the hair. Cassie eventually ran barefoot into a wooded area to escape. Carrie and Diddy went to look for Cassie separately. Carrie found her and the pair hid in a ditch before going back to the house. Carrie saw Cassie fight back against Diddy, but she never saw any injuries on him. Carrie was at Cassie's apartment the day after the hotel incident in 2016. The one at the elevator bank, the video we saw, that one. She said Cassie had a black eye. At least 2 other people have said Cassie had a black eye. Her stylist said it and the hotel security said it too. Carrie recalls that 30 minutes after Cassie got home, she was staying at Cassie's apartment. She said Diddy showed up, quote, yelling and banging on the door with a hammer. She said Cassie had no reaction. Quote, I don't think she cared if he came in and killed her. Eventually, Diddy left. The police arrived. Carrie can't remember who called, but Cassie wouldn't cooperate or ID herself. Carrie said she never called the police during other incidents because Cassie didn't want her to. Carrie said Cassie told her she couldn't leave Diddy because he, quote, controlled everything. She added, her job, her car, her apartment. He controlled everything. She would have lost all her livelihood. Carrie testified that Diddy assaulted her in Cassie's apartment in 2018. He let himself in while Cassie was in the bathroom. He asked Carrie who Cassie was cheating on him with. Carrie said she didn't know. Carrie said Diddy, quote, came up behind me and choked me and then boomeranged a wooden hanger at my head. She remembers that she had finger marks on her neck. She told Diddy's assistant he's going crazy, like he's lost it. Carrie says the assistant just shrugged. Carrie left. Carrie met with Cassie about a month after that incident, and Cassie offered her $30,000. Carrie signed a non-disclosure agreement that day, and she said it was the last time she spoke to Cassie. She said, quote, I draw my line at physical abuse. Oh, also, Carrie actually did receive the money. Diddy got a real bad habit of not paying people. He paid Carrie. Carrie notes that Cassie was jealous of Kim Porter because Cassie couldn't go to Diddy's New Year's Eve parties. Carrie says Diddy was jealous when Cassie started dating Michael B. Jordan. He be getting around. Carrie notes that Diddy was in an overlapping relationship with a woman named Gina, and that was, quote, a big problem for Cassie. Carrie remembers Gina as much younger. I'm like, wait, Cassie's 17 years younger than Diddy. Gina's younger than that? He could be her daddy. Carrie says she thinks Diddy and Cassie loved each other, and sometimes she even suggested they work out their issues. What? You saw your friend get beat by a nigga and was like, you know what? Maybe you can work it out. Girl, what? David James, former assistant to Diddy. Is this the one that was getting paid $125,000? No, I think that's the other one. Okay. David James, he worked as Diddy's assistant from 2007 to 2009. No, George was the one that was getting 125. We don't know how much David got paid. David said he saw a job offer, I want to say it was the New York Times, to be an executive assistant. So he applied for the job. He said he met with the senior vice president of Bad Boy HR, which I was like, wait, they had an HR? Did. David said during their meeting, the executive pointed at a picture of Diddy on the wall and said to David, quote, this is Mr. Combs' kingdom. We're all here to serve in it. That wasn't your sign to run, young David? It was not. David said he sometimes worked 3 weeks straight without a day off. He said Diddy's security advised him to, quote, stay in my lane, especially when he was asking too many questions. He said, I knew not to mess with them being security, to listen to them. David says he first met Cassie in Miami. Cassie said, quote, this lifestyle is crazy. David suggested to her that she should leave. Cassie said, quote, I can't get out. She said Diddy controlled her music career, paid for her apartment, and gave her an allowance. David described a time when a business associate asked Diddy about Kim and Cassie. Diddy described Kim as, quote, his queen. He described Cassie as, quote, moldable. He added, quote, I got her right where I want her. She's young. Court is adjourned. Everything I read to you is day 6. That's all one day of testimony. It's insane.
ChatGPT Plus is free for college students through May. Here's the thing. You've got a lot to do between now and then. Studying for finals, writing papers, trying to keep your life on track. And ChatGPT can help with all of it. It can quiz you for your econ exam, make a study guide from your French notes, plan out your meals and study breaks. It can get really specific on how you like to learn. It can even help you come up with ways to stop procrastinating. So from now until summer break, take advantage of all the ways ChatGPT can make your life easier. Restrictions apply.
Day 7 was so wild, we had to break it up into 2 parts. So this is day 7 morning. This is sourced from CNN and NBC News. David James, Diddy's assistant, he returned to the witness stand. NBC, they shady sometimes. They so shady. NBC noted that David appeared to have not changed clothes since the day prior. They probably told David he was flying in for the day to testify, and he just came in with no luggage. The testimony ran over and he had to stay an extra day. He had no extra clothes to wear. I only say this because a long time ago, something similar happened to me where I went to New York with just a giant purse because I thought I was going up for the day and I take the train back that night. Ended up having to stay over and ended up in court in the same clothes 2 days in a row. I felt like shit. I was embarrassed. I'm glad NBC wasn't there to comment on it. David continues his testimony. He says Diddy's mom, Mama Combs, Janice Combs, called him her son, and staff that worked for Bad Boy would frequently refer to it as being like a family. He said he felt a sense of mission working for Diddy. David says Diddy traveled with 2 cars for security. A second car always stayed to the right of the main vehicle. It was to prevent another car from pulling up on Diddy and assassinating him. If you recall, that's exactly how Big got killed in Vegas. I was like, does he have PTSD from that? I mean, which I would understand. He was in the car with Big when he got killed. It says one of Diddy's assistants went to the hospital for dehydration after working for 24 hours. David testified there was a saying among security, you know what rhymes with tired? Fired. David overheard conversations between Diddy and Cassie about her career. This comes up over and over and over. Cassie wanted to model and act. Diddy told her she should focus on music. Diddy had several girlfriends. Surprise, surprise. Kim Porter was the main girlfriend. And then Cassie and 3 other women were the other girlfriends. David said he did not witness violence between Diddy and Cassie. He did note that he was charged with delivering food to Cassie while she stayed at the London hotel. Diddy's staff always answered the door, not Cassie. He thought that was odd. He searched the blogs once and he found a post about Diddy hitting Cassie at a club. Diddy searched David's internet history. He found the blog and he told David that someone was lying. David would set up Diddy's hotel rooms before he arrived. He said Diddy's favorite hotel was Trump International. He talked about Diddy's LV bag, the same one that Dawn just mentioned. He said the bag contained $10,000 in cash, 25 to 30 unmarked pill bottles, Advil, Tylenol, Viagra, quote, pills to increase sperm count, water pills, Percocet, and E. RICO! That's a lot of drugs. He was also charged with buying in cash baby oil, Astroglide, and condoms for trips. When he restocked food and drink, he would pay and be reimbursed by Bad Boy. The defense asked David to confirm Diddy didn't use company money to pay for the baby oil and such, to which David responds, I mean, it's all his money. David said Diddy never stayed alone when he traveled. Usually Cassie was with him, but other women as well. He said he once delivered an iPod to Diddy in a Miami hotel room. He found Cassie in bed and a long-haired man in the room. Diddy was in the shower. David said he never brought it up to them. He said, I never had conversations with Cassie or Mr. Combs about their personal affairs. David saw Diddy take drugs and give them to friends. Sometimes David procured drugs. RICO! During a trip to Saint-Tropez, David arranged cocaine for a friend of Diddy's, but the friend asked, not Diddy. David said he assumed he had to do it. He said at a party in LA, Diddy sent him back to the house to get E for a friend. Narcotics with intent to distribute. RICO! One stop. Comes up again. He also brought drugs. Diddy preferred Percocet for business and ecstasy at night. Pause. I took Percocet when I had shingles. That's some good shit. It completely blocks you out of life. Also, as a writer, I couldn't write. I also wasn't allowed to drive or operate heavy machinery. Couldn't ride a bike. There was like a bunch of stuff. Like my doctor was like, yeah, so when you take this, you need to like be in the house. You going out in public, you really aren't fully all there, even if you feel fine. Like it blocks out the pain, but it also blocks out everything. You're there, but you're not really all there. This is what this nigga was taking to do business? Was. David took a lie detector test twice. The lie detector comes up another time. David recounts some money went missing and Diddy had him tested by a man he said was a former FBI agent. He said the second time he was tested was after a watch went missing. Diddy security searched David's clothes and drawers. David said he took E at a New Year's Eve party and Diddy recorded him. He told him, I will keep it, the recording, if I need it. He said, Diddy thought it would be embarrassing to me. David said he got into an altercation with Diddy's chef one time, a woman. This was at the Star Island residence, so down in Miami. David said he grabbed the woman's wrist, squeezed, and told her to, quote, stay in her lane. The incident was reported to Bad Boy HR. I will never get over Bad Boy actually having an HR. When Diddy heard about the incident, he chastised David. He told David, quote, you can't be putting your hands on women. And he said he would fire David if it happened again. He told David to write the chef a note and get her a gift, which he did. Minimum, like 8 people have taken the stand to speak in detail about the way you beat the brakes off Cassie and you chastise your assistant. Yes, you should tell the assistant, don't beat on women, but you should also take your own goddamn advice. Shit. David says Diddy also threatened to fire him after he was caught smoking weed. I was like, you literally are walking around with an entire Louis Vuitton bag full of narcotics, and you're mad at your assistant for smoking weed. David says sometimes Diddy and the chef physically fought. It says once Diddy told David to report the chef to the police and say that the chef hit him first. David said he refused, kind of. He told Diddy he would do it, but he said he didn't do it because he didn't want to make a false report. Remember, if you listen to the first episode where I spoke about the Diddy trial, Cassie recalled a time where she and Diddy were in the middle of a freak off and Diddy got word that Suge Knight was nearby. David fills in some of the gaps here. Diddy's security, D-Rock, was at a diner and he saw Suge. David says Suge Knight was outside waving around a gun, and D-Rock, the security, came back to the house and he told Diddy he saw Suge. David testified Diddy ordered him to drive to the diner. He drove. He said Diddy was in the back seat with 3 handguns on his lap. David said that was the first time he realized his life was in danger, and that's when he quit with 6 months notice to train the next assistant. Day 7 afternoon. This is sourced from NBC, CNN, and New York Post. New York Post is messy, but they don't cover every day. Cassie's mother is on the stand. Cassie's mother recounts that Diddy was pissed when he discovered Cassie was dating Kid Cudi. She said he was angry that he spent money on Cassie and she was now dating another man. She also recounts Cassie, using an alias, sent an email to her mom and a Diddy employee that turned out to be Capricorn Clark, saying Diddy threatened to release 2 sex tapes of her, the first on Christmas Day. The email said that Diddy had also threatened to hurt Cassie and Cuddy physically, but it wouldn't be by his own hand. Mama Ventura said, reading that email, she said, quote, I was physically sick. Not that I didn't already think he was like just an animal. This detail really got me. Diddy personally demanded $20,000 from Cassie's mom and quote and unquote recoup money that he had spent on Cassie. Cassie's parents took out a home equity loan for the money. Diddy's bad boy bookkeeper sent the wire instructions for a bad boy account via email. RICO! You had the accountant from your actual legitimate business enterprise reach out to a woman that you were basically extorting for money and had that accountant give the bank account transfer information to your business account via email. Like, not even I called her on a burner phone that you can't trace back to me. Did anybody watch The Wire? Everything I know about criminal shit and not doing criminal shit is from watching The Wire and copious amounts of Law and Order. Some of it's just like basic common sense. Don't leave a paper trail of criminal shit. Or Stringer Bell. Are you taking notes on a criminal conspiracy? No, you're just sending emails about one. Okay. The money was wired back to the Venturas with no explanation 4 to 5 days later. December 2011, Cassie confirmed to her mom that Diddy was beating her. Mama Ventura had previously suspected, I think there was a blind item on the blogs or something, and Cassie's mom had asked her about it, and Cassie was like, no, 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 and then she finally came clean. Also 2011, Mama Ventura took pictures of Cassie's bruised body to make record of the beatings by Cassie's then boyfriend, Diddy. Those pictures were shown in court, open court, because they're available on the internet. You can see large bruises on Cassie's. She's such a tiny girl. She's like maybe a size 2, if that. Mama Ventura and Diddy once got into a bitter argument outside of Cassie's LA apartment after Diddy stole Cassie's phone. Mama Ventura admits, quote, I tried to hit him, but I was unsuccessful. She also called the police on Diddy. She said eventually Diddy gave the phone back and then he took Cassie's car instead. The defense declined to cross-examine Mama Ventura. What you gonna say to somebody's mom? Like, what are you gonna say? You ain't gonna deny it because Mama showed up with all the receipts. She was like, and so here's the email from the accountant, and here is the wire transfer, and then here is it coming back into my account. Here is the email, because they showed the email. Here is the email that was sent to me from Cassie using an alias. She had all the paper trails. There was nothing that could be said. Next up is Sheree Hayes, aka the Punisher. He is an exotic dancer. I think it's worth noting, just, because the nature of what he currently does or did at the time. He said he's named the Punisher for his basketball prowess, not his bedroom prowess, just as a note of clarity. Also, this is why I was saying New York Post just be saying all sorts of salacious shit. He is the author of a book entitled In Search of Freezer Meat, which discusses erectile dysfunction. And so if you are unclear of like, what the hell does freezer meat have to do with erectile dysfunction, think about how hard freezer meat is before you unthaw it. Are you making the connections? Okay. In fall of 2012, Sheree said he met Diddy and Cassie at the Trump International Hotel in New York City. He believed he was going to do a 30 to 45-minute striptease for a small group. He says Cassie opened the door wearing a wig and a robe. He didn't recognize her. She said she and her husband wanted to create, quote, a sexy scene, rub her down with baby oil, and her husband would watch. She said not to look at, communicate, or acknowledge her husband. Cassie gave Hayes $800 and he went to the bathroom and changed into a towel. Hayes said the husband, who he didn't recognize, gave subtle directions to Cassie about their lighting and her positioning. He noted that the husband was naked and wearing a face covering, quote, like what the Muslim women wear. It's not a burqa. Niqab? Is that what it's called? The face covering? The husband pleasured himself and left the room. After, Sheree Hayes, same person, was paid $1,200. He said there was another encounter. He says this one was at Essex House, so another location, New York City. And on the TV, there was a message that said, quote, welcome, Mr. Sean Combs. And he said that's when he realized that the woman was Cassie. I think this is the escort that said he followed Diddy on Instagram. So he was, obviously very familiar with him. It was almost impossible not to be familiar with Diddy at this time period. He just didn't recognize Cassie yet. And he was like, oh, that's the girlfriend. Sheree said he had 8 to 12 encounters with the couple, always in New York City and usually at the last minute. He said he would stay with them from 2:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. sometimes. And he would sometimes work consecutive days. He said Cassie never seemed uncomfortable with the freak-offs and it seemed consensual. He did note Cassie had, quote, a consistent awareness of Diddy and of his desires. He said sometimes she would sigh or wince and she was usually looking in Diddy's direction. Hayes said Cassie never refused a direction from Diddy. He said every freak-off would start with baby oil. The encounters lasted about 4 hours. He says once he was having sex with Cassie and Diddy threw cash on the bed, which startled him. He was later paid with that money. He said he never used drugs with them and he never saw Diddy take drugs and Diddy appeared sober. He said there was no filming and no violence. He said he believed he was the only person the couple called for these encounters. Oh, friend, how naive were you? He said that performing sexually with someone watching, particularly a husband, was, quote, a lot of pressure, and he took meds to help his performance. He says his last session with Diddy and Cassie, he was not able to perform. Special Agent Gerard Gannon takes the stand. He said he planned the raid on Diddy's Miami residence. They searched the entire property, which was about 20,000 square feet. They usually do raids in the morning, but they knew Diddy had a scheduled trip, so they waited for him to leave before the search began. He said in Diddy's personal closet, they found boxes, they had pictures of this, of 7-inch platform heels, sex toys, 6 bottles of baby oil, 8 bottles of personal lube, condoms, lingerie, and parts of AR-15s. The heels, they were all like stripper heels. Patent leather, that really, really high heel with the platform in front, that like, strippers use, or acrylic heels. The agent notes that the guns that were seized had their serial numbers scratched off. He says there were weapons, bullets, magazines, and sex-related items. I have a note here. It says NBC reports that the police were called. Remember that the assistant said he didn't call the police because he didn't want to make a false report? If I recall correctly, he said he left the house saying he was going to make the false report, and he just drove around for a while. And when he came back, he told Diddy that he had done it. NBC did a little research. They said the police were actually called in 2008 over an issue with Diddy's personal chef. David James, Diddy's personal assistant, said the chef was fired and she was upset, but she made no threats. To which the police were like, this is a civil matter. Why are you calling us? All right, so that concludes day 7. You ready for day 8? Day 8 is a lot. Day 8 involves ducks. Ducks, like quack, quack. This recap is sourced from NBC News, CNN, and New York Post. Gerald Gannon, the Homeland Security Special Agent in charge of the search at Diddy's Star Island residence, is back on the stand. Gannon said the Star Island search was tied to a human trafficking investigation. It says the search produced lots of firearms. Many were wrapped in tape, not loaded, and thus inoperable. That's important to note. In the rest of Diddy's house, they found 18 pairs of platform heels. 3 cell phones were found inside a Balenciaga boot. This is important because Diddy was recording freak-offs sometimes on his cell phones. It says another cell phone was seized from a different bedroom. They said they found a Gucci bag in the closet that contained white powder, a, quote, crystal rock-like substance. And I was like, is this nigga doing meth or crack? And then also a plastic straw and $100 bill. It says the powder and residue from the straw tested positive for cocaine and ketamine. Residue from the $100 bill tested positive for cocaine and ketamine. A bottle of eye drops found in a bag tested positive for MDMA and ketamine. A couple people were like, wait, eye drops? Like, he's getting high on eye drops? Like, no. You use eye drops because it's easier to drop it in a drink. Various tablets that the feds found also tested positive for MDMA. MDMA, I believe is that ecstasy? Molly. One of those. Other tablets tested positive for the active ingredient in Xanax. And then others tested positive for methamphetamine and MDMA. Is that not the same thing? Authorities also found a bin containing 25 bottles of baby oil, 31 bottles of Astroglide, and 2 rubber ducks in a hallway closet. So actually what was reported was a duck, but then they showed pictures of like the basket of like Astroglide and lube. And like you can clearly see like 2 ducks. There's a green duck and a yellow duck. 2 ducks. I am not aware of what the ducks are used for. Somebody told me, they were like, ask a nurse. I asked on my IG stories. A little bit of everybody is on Instagram. Most of my readers are Black women. Like they gotta be some nurses in there. Nobody's told me what the ducks are for. I don't know what you use a duck for. Like I Googled it and nothing really came up. I mean, some stuff came up on some porn sites, but they weren't using the duck in what I clicked on. Also, I'm using the internet on my mama's Wi-Fi. I don't want her to think I'm a pervert. It's one thing to watch regular porn. It's a whole nother thing to be like ducks. In the master bedroom, agents found MDMA and capsules containing the active ingredient in mushrooms. They also found a loaded .45 that was recovered from a suitcase in a room in the property's guest house. Diddy's bathroom mirror was scrawled with handwritten messages. You a legend. You're an icon, Puff Daddy. And upward motion. For some reason, I just think Carisha wrote that. I don't know why. I just do. Up next is Dawn Hughes. She is a clinical and forensic psychologist, and she's also an experienced expert witness. She testified that she's being paid $600 American USD dollars and dineros per hour for her work with the prosecution. She also gets paid 6,000 American USD dollars and dineros for a day of testimony in court. And I was like, look, maybe I should have gone into forensic psychology. That's honest work for honest pay. Diddy's assistants should have gone into forensic psychology. No drama, no crime, not that she's committing, no threat of jail, and good money, unlike what they were getting paid. I think the last bonus episode that we did, one of the last things we talked about was Cassie said that Diddy raped her at her house. And then she said a month later, she had consensual sex with him. This was after she was out of a relationship with him. This is after he had beat the brakes off of her, as she testified, as multiple other people had testified, for the better part of 11 years. She had moved on. She was in a new relationship with her now husband. She had moved on. And then she goes back to Diddy to have consensual sex. I couldn't make sense of it. And I was like, hey, like, I know it takes a lot to get out of an abusive relationship. I understand that there's psychological and emotional elements to it that I just don't understand. And I left it at that because it was beyond my understanding. So Dawn's testimony is really important to help me, and I think a lot of other people, understand why Cassie and perhaps some of the other people in this case that may not have been in a romantic relationship with Diddy, but still, even after they've witnessed so much abuse, even after he has been abusive toward them, still have this like connection to him. Like they still want to be in his orbit somehow. So what Dawn says can give us some understanding into the mindset of people who are really survivors of abuse, whether it's from a boss or whether it's from like a boyfriend or a pimp or however you like to describe Diddy. As Hughes testified, it's very common for victims to stay in abusive relationships. She explained that perpetrators often use various abusive methods beyond just physical violence. She said sexual abuse can make it difficult for a victim to seek help. She said, quote, they experience a tremendous amount of shame, humiliation, and degradation. She testified that a trauma bond is when someone is attached to their partner in spite of violence and abuse. Hughes said a trauma bond can make a victim unwilling to leave a relationship. She said it often takes multiple attempts for victims to leave an abusive relationship. She also said it's common for victims to take drugs or drink before they see a partner. She said what's uncommon is for victims to talk about abuse around the time it occurs. She says many victims will wait months, even years, before talking about what happened to them. She said abuse victims often avoid labeling themselves as a victim or labeling an abuser as an abuser. She said victims are more likely to remember isolated instances of abuse that are connected to a marker or a significant event for a victim, such as a birthday or an anniversary. Keep that in mind when we're talking about, especially Cassie, because she's catching it so bad online right now. People are just like, well, why didn't she leave? Why didn't she leave? Why didn't she leave? Which again, she's recounted, and other people who've testified as well have recounted countless times that Cassie tried to escape and Diddy just beat her ass. Next up is George Kaplan. He's a former executive assistant to Diddy. CNN noted George received a subpoena to appear. He initially evoked his Fifth Amendment right not to testify. The judge granted him immunity. George was like desperate not to be here. This is also the guy who worked 80 to 100 hours a week for $125,000, committing felonies and shit. George says he communicated with Diddy daily, exchanging texts, calls, emails multiple times a day about things Diddy might need, which could include clothing, food, drugs, liquor, an iPad, or a speaker. During George's first work week, Diddy assigned him to find a 1-gallon BPA-free water bottle at Whole Foods. He brought back 2 half-gallon bottles instead. Diddy flipped. George said he was very close to my face. George testified Diddy threatened his job almost monthly. Sometimes Combs was angry and other times motivational. George booked hotel rooms for Diddy in Los Angeles, Miami, and New York. He recalls booking the Bel Air Hotel, Trump International, Mr. C Hotel, and the Intercontinental Hotel, where Diddy was seen on tape beating Cassie. One of his duties was to prep Diddy's hotel rooms. He says the rooms were usually reserved under the name Frank Black, a reference to deceased bad boy artist Notorious B.I.G., who called himself Frank White. Frank Black comes up over and over and over. Diddy used it to book hotels. He also used this alias to get prescription drugs. He was using a fake name to get drugs. That's illegal. George testified that the first time he prepped a hotel room, he was given a bag and told to unpack it. The bag had clothes, a speaker, candles, liquor, baby oil, and lubricant. After that, he would often buy the same supplies with his corporate credit card. RICO! Using corporate credit card for freak-offs. George would unpack the toiletries and arrange them so they were all facing forward. George's understanding was that Diddy would have guests or a female partner join him in the hotel rooms. He would also clean hotel rooms after Diddy checked out. George testified the rooms would often be littered with liquor and Gatorade bottles and baby oil, and on one occasion he found white powder near a sink. On another occasion, he cleaned up, quote, brown crystallized powder off a countertop. He didn't know what it was, but cleaned it up just in case. He said the mess could be embarrassing and sold to tabloids. He said, quote, protecting Diddy and protecting his public image was very important, and that was something I was very keen on doing. This comes up again in Capricorn Clark. She started sobbing, apparently, on the stand about, this was after Diddy fired her. She felt bad that she wasn't there working with him to protect him. Some of the places that reported that testimony said that she was crying over Cassie, because that would make more sense. Like, no one was there to protect Cassie, and I felt responsible for her. She was Cassie's creative director, and she worked very closely with her at the time. She wasn't crying about Cassie. She was crying about protecting Diddy. He did a number on these folks. George recounted 2 times where he picked up drugs on Diddy's behalf, once in Miami and once in Los Angeles. Both times, Diddy gave him cash and a number to call, and then George arranged the pickup. One time he picked up MDMA, and another time he didn't know what the substance was. That concludes his testimony. Day 9. Day 9 has a part 1 and a part 2 as well. Day 9, part 1. This recap is sourced from Washington Post, CNN, and USA Today. George Kaplan, Diddy's former executive assistant. He describes Diddy as, quote, a god among men. He added, Diddy didn't just push me to my deepest depths. He took me to depths I didn't know I had. He actually helped me grow up as a man. In 2015, George, Diddy, Cassie, and security took a private plane to Vegas. George says he heard a tremendous noise. He looked back and he saw Diddy standing over Cassie. He said he looked away. He also said Cassie yelled, "Isn't anybody seeing this?" George says neither he nor security helped her. George explains. He says, I was 23 years old. All I wanted was a great job in the entertainment industry. He said he was concerned that speaking out could jeopardize Diddy's quote and unquote well-being. He also said he didn't see injuries on Cassie afterward. He says in 2015, he got a call to meet Diddy at his LA residence in the bedroom. He said he saw Cassie on the bed with a bruised eyebrow and forehead. He said he didn't stop to talk to her or check on her. He said Diddy was in the bathroom. George says Diddy told him to pick up, quote, several over-the-counter remedies, including witch hazel. He says George went to the pharmacy and he used his corporate card to purchase the items. RICO! Which he recognized would work as an anti-swelling agent. The defense asked George how expenses were handled for Diddy. George says Diddy never personally paid for something in the moment. He said usually an assistant would hold Diddy's wallet, which held a credit card and a license. He says Diddy's travel and excursions were handled by employees, not Diddy. George added that Diddy had employees who dealt with the finer details of his finances. He said, quote, to think that Diddy knew where some of these things were coming from is unrealistic. 2015, George says he quit after he saw Diddy hurling green apples, he wasn't sure if they were real, at a woman named Gina. That was one of Diddy's girlfriends. He says the apples were in a decorative bowl displayed by the entrance of Diddy's Miami residence. George also says, quote, I was not comfortable or aligned with the physical behavior that I had seen pieces of. He says he does not know if any of the apples actually hit Gina. George assumed that the behavior, the violence, was normal for the entertainment industry. He also confirmed that Diddy never physically threatened him. He never heard Diddy verbally threaten or physically harm Cassie. He heard it on the plane. He just didn't actually see it. Diddy was standing over Cassie. He says he also never saw Diddy with a gun. He says he gave notice in September 2015 and he finally left in December. He told Diddy he was leaving because his dad was sick, and he said Diddy was, quote, extremely gracious. George invited Diddy to his wedding and he did not hear back. He said he still contacts Diddy on his birthday every year. He added, I desperately did not want to come here to testify. And I have a note here. It says George and Diddy nodded to each other as George walked out. You're so appalled by the man's behavior that you quit, but then you still invite him to your wedding? And then you give him a nod of respect? He taught you things about being a man? Like how to beat women? Like what exactly did he teach you? How to do drugs? Like what exactly? Okay, all right. Scott Miss Cuddy, a.k.a. Kid Cudi, is on the witness stand. The press made a really, really, really big deal about Cuddy showing up. And he showed up like a pure fucking rock star. He showed up, black leather jacket, white shirt, jeans, smoking a cigarette with a gigantic security guard holding an umbrella over him. It was raining. He was dressed like James Dean. I mean, down to the cigarette. Like he came in like a pure fucking rock star. And his demeanor on the stand, the way it was described, like he fucking delivered. Cuddy testified that he thought Cassie was single when he began dating her in 2011. He says in December, he received a call from Cassie around 6 a.m. telling him that Diddy found out they were dating and she feared Diddy was on his way to Cuddy's house to confront him. Cuddy said Cassie sounded really stressed on the phone, nervous, scared, so I went to go pick her up. Cuddy took Cassie to the Sunset Marquis Hotel. While the pair were together, Capricorn Clark, an assistant who worked for Diddy, called to inform that Diddy and an affiliate were inside Cuddy's home in the Hollywood Hills. Capricorn said she had been forced to go with them. Cuddy immediately left for his house. He said he called Diddy on the way to the Hollywood Hills. He said, motherfucker, you in my house? Diddy said, I just want to talk to you. Cuddy said, I'm on my way. I'll be right down. Diddy said, I'm over here waiting for you. This sounds like some Mr. Biggs R. Kelly shit. I can't go listen to it because, R. Kelly, but nothing. I'm moving on. When Cuddy arrived at his home, Combs wasn't there. Cuddy noticed that his security cameras had been moved and some Christmas gifts he purchased had been opened. He said his dog was locked in the bathroom. It's not where he left the dog. Cuddy got in his Porsche and called Combs to ask where he was. Cuddy said he was angry and wanted to fight, but he calmed down after hanging up. He said, quote, I don't know what his intentions are. He said he filed a police report instead. That same December, Cuddy spent Christmas with Cassie and her family. He said Diddy texted him a couple times wanting to speak, but he didn't want to speak to Diddy because, he just broke in his house and, fucked with his dog. Was it John Wick? It's a good series, but it all started because of the dog. January 2012, Cuddy got a call from his dog sitter telling him that Cuddy's Porsche was on fire in the driveway. Cuddy and Diddy arranged to meet at the Soho House in LA to talk. Cuddy said, this is not funny, but it's funny. Cuddy said Sean Combs was standing there with his hands behind his back like a Marvel supervillain. He described Diddy's demeanor as off-putting and noted he kept offering me water. It was weird that he was so calm. He said Diddy told him that they were homies, and he said he couldn't understand why Cuddy would mess with Cassie. He said, quote, "You knew that was my girl." Cuddy said he had taken Cassie's word when she told him that she and Diddy were over. When Cassie arrived at the meeting, I was like, yo, what kind of Tyler Perry production is this? She explained to Diddy that she and Cuddy fell in love and things just happened. Cuddy asked Diddy about his Porsche. Diddy said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Cuddy said he pulled his hand back. Diddy asked what was wrong. Cuddy confirmed with Diddy that it was his word that he didn't have anything to do with the damage to the Porsche. He said he thought Diddy was lying. In 2015, Cuddy and Diddy ran into each other at Soho House again. He says Diddy was with his daughter and he came up to him. He said, quote, "I just want to apologize for all that bullshit." Cuddy testified that was the last thing I was expecting to get from him. Cuddy said Cassie told him Diddy would hit her, sometimes kick her. He said she never mentioned the sexual abuse. Cuddy also said he was in love with Cassie, and he said after they broke up, they just stopped talking after being in contact almost every day for about a year. And the defense asked him, they said, "She played you, right?" And he said, "Yes." The defense also notes that there was a DNA test done. This part is cut off on my screen, but I believe it was a DNA test done on the Molotov cocktail that was thrown into the car, and a woman's DNA was found in some part of the cocktail. We'll get that detail when we talk to, I think it's the fire investigator that testified today, day 11. The defense thanked Cuddy for his testimony, to which Cuddy responded, "Yep, no problem." That's day 9, part 1. This is day 9, part 2. This is sourced from Washington Post, CNN, and USA Today. Mila Morales. She is Cassie Ventura's friend and her longtime makeup artist. Mila worked for Diddy from 2000 to 2005, and then with Cassie from 2007 to 2018. She describes herself as, quote, "a big sister to Cassie." She said she did Cassie's makeup for photo shoots, music videos, and fashion magazines. And she said, quote, "Sean always made sure the look was perfect." In 2010, Grammy Awards weekend, Mila was napping in Cassie's hotel suite when Diddy came in shouting. He was angry that Cassie had gone to a party at Prince's house. Diddy went into Cassie's room and Mila heard yelling and screaming. When she saw Cassie again, Cassie had a swollen eye, a busted lip, and knots on her head. She took Cassie home. She called a physician friend to come and look at Cassie's injuries, and that physician recommended Cassie go to the ER. She declined. Mila said her fear of Diddy kept her from talking to Diddy or from calling the police, and that neither Diddy nor his employees brought up the incident to her. She said she and Cassie never discussed it again. Mila said she has done about 8 interviews about her knowledge of Cassie and Diddy's relationship and about this incident. She said she wasn't paid for any of them. Frederick Zimor, he's a general manager of La Hermitage in Beverly Hills. He also testified, and he was questioned about Diddy's hotel records. He says Diddy was a problematic guest, likely to damage property. One of the notes in his system were, quote, "always spills candle wax on everything and uses excessive amounts of oil." This was an internal note at the hotel. Employees were instructed to charge Diddy an extra $1,000 for expected damage and to mark the room out of order upon his departure so it could be deep cleaned. They said once Combs was charged $500 for an excessive amount of candle wax found on the carpet. They noted that Combs booked rooms under the aliases Frank Black and Ryan Lopez, but the staff knew who he was. Diddy was assigned entry-level rooms. He also liked the room hot. The hotel set the thermostat to 75 degrees before his arrival. And a housekeeping note said to, quote, "monitor outside his room down the hall to spray air freshener." The defense declined to cross-examine. The last witness of the day is Joshua Croft. He's a Homeland Security special agent. He specializes in computer forensics. He extracted data from multiple devices that were owned by Diddy and also Cassie. He gave a broad overview of what he found on different laptops with signs of damage, laptops being erased to factory settings. He said one of the laptops had a damaged hard drive, but he was still able to recover a lot of data. He said another laptop, which prosecutors said belonged to Cassie, had been reset to factory settings and showed a login screen for Frank Black, an alias used by Diddy. This is day 10. We're almost caught up. 2 more days to go. Day 10, yesterday. Obviously, if you've listened to the podcast to this point, and I don't mean all the episodes, I mean just this one alone, Capricorn's testimony was really hard. This recap is sourced from Washington Post, CNN, NBC News, and USA Today. So 4 sources on this one. Because there was so much crazy that I was just like, wait, what? So I probably oversourced it, but let's get into it. Capricorn Clark, Diddy's assistant from 2004 to 2012, took the stand. She also worked as Cassie's creative director from 2016 to 2018. She alleges that she was kidnapped by Diddy in 2011. And I added a note here. It says CNN describes Capricorn's voice as quivering during her testimony. In 2002, Capricorn met Diddy through a mutual friend. Prior to working for Diddy, Bad Boy, Capricorn worked for Def Jam and Death Row Records, which was run by Diddy's nemesis, Suge Knight. In 2004, on her first day at Bad Boy, Diddy and his bodyguard, Uncle Paulie, took Capricorn to Central Park at 9 p.m. So it was dark. Diddy told her that he didn't know that she used to work for Death Row. And he told her, quote, if anything happened, he would have to kill me. Why she continued working for him, I'm kind of unclear, but okay. Capricorn said she worked from 9 a.m. to 4 a.m. every day. She was paid 65,000 USD dollars and dineros per year. I crunched the numbers on that. 100 hours of work per week at $65,000 a year, $13 and like 63 cents, I think is what it came up to. That's what she was working for. She said while she worked for Diddy, she was not given breaks to sleep or to eat. Is that forced labor? Capricorn typically got 4 hours of sleep per night and developed stress-induced alopecia. And still, she said, quote, I think I was a really good employee to him. She said once she complained to HR about her working conditions at Bad Boy, HR crunched the numbers and determined that Diddy owed her $80,000 in overtime over a 3-month period. When Diddy was presented with the findings, he ripped up the paper. Capricorn testified that she was never compensated for the overtime. She said Diddy traveled with a camera box that included a camera, a small bottle of baby oil, and lube. And also that Louis Vuitton toiletry bag keeps coming up that was full of drugs. She said after Diddy's hotel stays, she would check the room. She said sometimes there was damage, including handprints left in oil on a suede wall. She said Diddy did E and Molly once a week. Somebody checked me on Threads and was like, E and Molly are the same thing. And I was like, I thought E and Molly were kind of like how Coke and crack are kind of like the same thing, but in different forms. And one is harder than the other. Is that accurate? I don't know. I'm not into drugs like that. I've never done E or Molly. I don't even know if I've ever seen E or Molly. But he did E or Molly once a week plus prescription meds. She said One Stop, that name keeps coming up, provided the drugs in LA and delivered them to either her or Diddy. She said Diddy asked her to get E less than 10 times, and she also saw him give drugs to friends and girlfriends. RICO! She said in France, Diddy asked her to get coke and said it wasn't for him. She had security get it. France, RICO! It would also be RICO if it was in the States. I just kind of like yelling RICO sometimes, but it actually applies. I'm not just yelling it willy-nilly. Capricorn said she would also get prescription drugs for Diddy, sometimes in her name, sometimes in Diddy's, which I don't know if that's RICO, but it's illegal as fuck. She said Diddy had an issue with 50 Cent, and after an MTV event attended by both rappers, Combs said to an entertainment manager who worked for both Diddy and 50, I don't like all the back and forth. I like guns. In 2004, Diddy accused Capricorn of stealing diamond jewelry that had been loaned to him by Jacob the jeweler. Cap had been assigned to hold the jewelry and the bag was missing. She said a security guard questioned her for hours and then later searched her apartment. She said the next day she was picked up and a guard locked her in a vacant office space on the 6th floor in a dilapidated building. And that building later became Bad Boy headquarters. She said a very wide man administered a lie detector test at a 6-foot-long folding table. He told Capricorn if she failed the test, then quote unquote, they would throw her in the East River. I was petrified, she testified. She said she was taken to the building for 5 straight days. And when she returned to work, Diddy never questioned where she was or mentioned the lie detector test. She said she didn't report anything to HR. Which, again, I cannot believe there was an HR for all of this. Capricorn says once she was with Diddy at his LA mansion and she was sitting with another employee, a woman who also worked for Bad Boy. She said Diddy told them that they were, quote, too disobedient to pull a guy like him. She said Diddy called Cassie into the room and he told her to spin around and model, which she did. And then he told Capricorn and the other woman, that's why you bitches don't have a man. Nigga, don't nobody want you. They want your money. They want your access. They want your power. You beating the brakes off that girl. Don't nobody want to beat Cassie. And Capricorn knew. Like, it's not like she didn't know you were beating her. Like, come, sir. Sir, the delusion is strong with this one. Capricorn testified that Diddy was violent with everybody who worked for him, men and women. He threw phones at the male security staff and the barber. 2006, Capricorn was staying at Diddy's Miami home and he told her twice that she could not leave for the entire weekend. She said after being informed by Diddy's personal chef that there was no turkey bacon, she grumbled, quote, I hate it here. The chef informed Diddy, who was standing outside. Capricorn said Diddy came in, he charged at her, he pushed her on the shoulder several times and yelled, if you hate it here, get the fuck out my house. Eventually, a guard intervened. Capricorn says she quit because it was crossing my boundary. She left. She went to work at Jive Zamba. She said she worked on projects for R. Kelly and Sierra. She eventually returned to work for Bad Boy as Cassie's creative director. It says from 2007 to 2010, Cap says the lion's share of Bad Boy resources were focused on Cassie, all the producers, choreographers, and stylists. She said in 2012, she guesses that Cassie received the same attention as French Montana and Machine Gun Kelly. I couldn't figure out if that was shade or not. I mean, French was popular. He wasn't like Biggie popular, but he had influence. Maybe not he had influence. People listened to his music. People knew who French was. I know French is. In 2011, Capricorn and Cassie would hang out socially. Cassie asked Capricorn via text if Cuddy could join them, and Cap told her to delete the message because Diddy paid for both their phones. She said she took Cassie to Best Buy to get a burner phone. December 22nd, 2011. Wait, I don't think I realized the dates were so close together. Diddy popped up in Cuddy's house on December 22nd, 2011. And then 3 days later, went to Cassie's house in Connecticut. Like, so flew across country with Cassie to go to her family's home for Christmas. All these people are crazy. All of them. All of them. Cuddy included. All of them. December 22nd, 2011, Diddy popped up at Capricorn's apartment, banging at the door at 5:36 a.m. She said it was the first time Diddy had ever been to her home. She said Diddy's pants were split up the inseam from the knee, and Cap could see his underwear. She said Diddy was holding a gun, and he was, quote, livid, furious, mad at me. Diddy had found out about Cassie and Cuddy. He told Cap to get dressed and said, quote, we're going to kill him. We're going to kill him being Cuddy. Cap protested. Diddy told her, I don't give a fuck what you want to do. Get dressed. This was the first time she had seen Diddy with a weapon or that he had made her do something like this. She said Diddy's security, Ruben, drove the Escalade to Cuddy's house. She testified that Diddy had a gun in his lap. Diddy and security went inside Cuddy's house. Capricorn called Cassie's burner phone from the truck to tell her what was going on. She heard a man yell, "He's in my house!" Cassie said she was with Cuddy. Capricorn also called Lauren London, who got to be somewhere wondering now how I get in it. I got enough going on. She said Lauren London was, quote, like my sister. She called Lauren London so somebody else knew where she was, quote, in case this all went really bad. Went badder, because it's already bad, sis. Like Joe Jackson. It's bad. Capricorn changed Cassie's name to Stormy in her phone. She warned Cassie to tell Cuddy not to confront Diddy. She said, quote and unquote, stop him. He's going to get himself killed. Cuddy was already on the way to his house. Diddy came back to the truck and took Capricorn's phone. He called the last number she dialed. He said, bitch, what the fuck is this number? Cuddy pulled up next to the Escalade, then drove off uphill. The Escalade chased him. Capricorn said, quote, it felt like forever, but couldn't have been longer than a minute. They heard sirens headed to Cuddy's house. How do you really know where sirens are headed? But okay. She said it was to Cuddy's house, and she said Diddy finally calmed down. Cap, Diddy, and Ruben, the security guard, went to a nightclub. It's LA at like, I don't know, 7:30 in the morning. LA club shut down by 2. I'm going to guess they actually went to like the parking lot of a nightclub, not that they went into a nightclub. This is after they left Cuddy's home. Diddy told Capricorn to call Cassie and tell her, quote, he has me. He's not going to let me go until I come get you. That doesn't really make sense to me. Like, he has me. He won't let me go, but he wants me to come get you. So he'll release me to come get you until he doesn't have me anymore. I'm like, girl, if you don't get in your car and drive toward the North Star, drive to a police station, North Star, same difference. Nobody ever calls the police. Cassie told Cap to come get her. Capricorn testified Diddy also told her to tell Cassie to convince Cuddy not to tell police Diddy was in Cuddy's house. He did that anyway. Diddy just didn't know. He added, if you guys don't convince him, I'll kill all of you. Capricorn left and went and got Cassie and took her to Diddy. She said when they showed up, Diddy was in his robe and underwear. Cap says he, quote, immediately began kicking Cassie. There was another description of this event. Diddy was waiting for them in the foyer. He got Cassie down on the ground and he kicked her all the way from the foyer to the curb of the street. Cap says that she and the security guard stood by and watched. Diddy threatened to hurt Capricorn if she intervened. Eventually, the security guard told Capricorn to leave. She said when she did, she called Cassie's mom and said, quote, he's beating the shit out of your daughter. I can't call the police, but you can. Please help her. Mama Ventura said she would handle it and hung up. Why the prosecution didn't ask mom about this on the stand? I mean, I guess it was coming up later, but like still, you can't have too many people corroborate like crazy events like this. Capricorn says an arson investigator contacted her about Cuddy's vehicle. That investigator testifies later. She said she hung up. She said, quote, I wanted this whole thing to be over. She added that she never discussed the incident with anyone. And she also said the building security guard who let Diddy come upstairs to her apartment, he got fired. So she heard. She also continued working for Diddy. He forbade her to be friends with Cassie. And sometimes he would angrily ask her why she didn't tell him about Cassie and Cuddy. She says that one time he said to her, quote, I should kill you bitches, and cut Cassie's face. Capricorn guesses that Diddy threatened her more or less 50 times over the next 6 months. She said in 2012, Capricorn told HR and Bad Boy President Harve Pierre about the 2011 incident. Pierre told her, quote, that's crazy, but it's going to be okay. If I recall from another lawsuit, Harve and Diddy, did they go to college together? They're like old friends pre-Bad Boy, like had a personal relationship. And then he asked Harve to come run Bad Boy. Capricorn was fired in August 2012. She testified that she was on vacation. I believe she was with Rihanna. But she was on vacation and she was still being sent work. So she complained to HR. And she also added that Diddy was just mad at her because his girlfriend cheated on him. She said she was fired for improperly submitting a request for vacation. She said when she was fired, Diddy told her she would never work again and he, quote, would make me kill myself. She says that she was blacklisted. In fall of 2012, she received a wrongful termination settlement. So she complained to somebody, got through to him. HR, which again, I still cannot believe all this crazy shit was happening and there was HR. I know HR is not there to protect the employees. They're there to protect the business. But like when the employees started complaining about the crazy shit going on at the business, like nobody was like, hey, maybe you should stop because people are complaining. Like if they complain beyond us, we got a real problem here. 2014-15, Capricorn pleaded with Diddy to forgive her. She sent emails. They showed them in court. They asked why. Why did you do this? Why were you trying to go back to work for Bad Boy? She said, I felt like I was Diddy's protector and he didn't have anyone looking out for him. In 2016, Capricorn returned to Bad Boy as Cassie's creative director after being unable to find work. She said Diddy had blacklisted her. She said when she came back, she noticed an increase in Cassie's drug use, and that prevented Cassie from pursuing a lot of opportunities. The defense asked Capricorn, they said, do you remember texting Diddy in 2021 saying that like when you met him that, quote, I had the biggest crush on you? Capricorn said she remembers reaching out, but she said she didn't recall that, and the defense showed her a copy of the text. Capricorn retained an attorney after Cassie filed the lawsuit against Diddy. She said, quote, it traumatized her. It also came up that in 2023, she actually met with Diddy. She retained an attorney, and then she and her attorney and a friend went to meet with Diddy and his attorneys. And she said at that meeting, she brought up working for Diddy as his chief of staff. They also discussed Diddy's rehab. And she also told Diddy that he wouldn't be in the mess that he's currently in if she had still been working for him. The defense asked Capricorn, why was it that she wanted to work for Diddy? Like, what was the draw of all this? And she said she learned a lot. Diddy was tenacious and he broke glass ceilings. She also said that she didn't finish college and she thought working for him was like another form of B school. I ain't go to B school. I went to J school. I know a bunch of people who did go to B school. This is not what they teach in B school. You said another form of B school, but like, no, this ain't like another form of B school. It's no. Even take out the violence and all the crazy stuff. Like I knew enough people that worked for Bad Boy and was like, yo, the books, the accounting, the money issues, like it's a fucking mess over here. Diddy, much like Trump, is great at branding. And he has always been his own best product. I mean, like until like 2 years ago. Then it all fell apart. But like, look at all the artists that have ever worked for him. Like, who's successful? Who? People be like, oh, Mary J. Blige. She was never signed to Bad Boy. Neither was Lil' Kim. You know who was signed to Bad Boy? Shine, The Lox, Biggie, Craig Mack, Mace. 3 of them became hyper religious. Of those 3, one of them ended up in jail. Craig Mack is deceased. Junior Mafia, Total, Faith. Faith turned out okay, but didn't she have like drug problems at one point? She was heavily suspected of having drug problems at one point. I don't want to say the woman had drug problems. Faith is very lovely in person. She's very nice. Let's move on. Oh, we're moving on to like literally the testimony earlier today, day 11. I swear for God, I will never let this many days pass between doing a recap because this is long as hell. But let's push through. Diddy trial day 11 is sourced from CNN, Washington Post, ABC News. First person to take the stand, there were 3 people testifying. The first one is LAPD officer Christopher Ignacio. He says in December 2011, he and his partner responded to Kid Cudi's home at 8:20 a.m. in the goddamn morning for a possible burglary on the day that Diddy allegedly broke into Cudi's house. Ignacio testified there was a black Escalade parked outside. It took off when the police pulled up, but not before Ignacio caught the license plate number, which he did run. He said the SUV was registered to Bad Boy Productions Incorporated. Ignacio said he entered Cudi's home through the unlocked front door. He said he saw several high-value watches and purses, Christmas gifts, laid about. He said Cuddy eventually returned to the home. He was quote-unquote flustered, and he did file a trespassing report. Next up is Lance Jimenez. He's an LA fire investigator. And he says in January 2012, he responded to Kid Cudi's home to investigate a fire that was set to the rapper's Porsche. He definitely believes that the car was targeted because it was not easily visible from the street, and Cuddy lives in an affluent neighborhood with low crime. He also said there was an additional car in the driveway that was unbothered. He did note that there was severe damage to the Porsche, but not as bad as it could have been. The fire with the Porsche, it was started, I think he had a drop top Porsche, had a cloth top, and somebody cut a hole in the top of the Porsche and then threw a Molotov cocktail inside. Jimenez described that the Molotov cocktail was made from, quote, a designer type handkerchief made of a, quote, silky type material. The handkerchief fell out of a 40-ounce Old English malt liquor bottle that didn't shatter, and the cocktail didn't explode because the gasoline didn't properly disperse. Tell me Cuddy got a praying grandmother. He also said, I don't have this in my notes, but I remember reading it. He said if the Molotov cocktail would have been made the right way and it set the car on fire the way that it was supposed to, he said the car was, parked close to the house and it was near shrubbery. It would have been likely that the car would have, gone up in flames, that those flames would have hit the shrubs, and then the shrubs would have hit the house. So just the car just being on fire in the driveway and there was no damage to the house. Tell me you got a praying grandmother without telling me you got a praying grandmother. Cuddy gave Jimenez several names of people to talk to about the fire, including Capricorn and Cassie. But Capricorn testified that the investigator kept calling and she never answered. Cassie did the same. The investigator said he went as far as to call Cassie's father, who was also a firefighter. He did confirm, this is what I was saying earlier, that there was partial DNA from a female contributor found on the Molotov cocktail. Because again, it didn't explode. They showed pictures of it in court. There was like a full bottle, unbroken. I don't remember if it was the passenger seat or the driver's seat, but it was in one of the seats. Next up is Deontay Nash. He worked as a stylist at Bad Boy from 2008 to 2018. He said he heard Diddy call Cassie, quote unquote, baby girl, CC, Cass, slut, and hoe. But he said, bitch was Diddy's quote unquote fave name for her by far. Multiple times he heard Diddy threaten Cassie that he would, quote, beat her ass. He would threaten to not release her music, get her parents fired from their jobs, and release sexually explicit videos of her anytime she did something he didn't like. In 2014, at a Vanity Fair post-Oscar party, Diddy grabbed Deontay by the jacket and lifted him up. He was upset that Cassie's hair was down and he wanted it up. Deontay asked people for hairpins and told Cassie to go in the bathroom with staff to fix her hair. He said Diddy approved every outfit Cassie wore, and he doesn't believe Diddy did this for every Bad Boy artist because, quote, some of them look terrible. Deontay said that he and Cassie spent so much time in the studio that they decorated it and slept there regularly. He said only 10% of that music was released. If you remember, Cassie testified that she recorded like 9 albums worth of music and it didn't come out. Deontay says Diddy promised Cassie to put her Rockabye Baby mixtape on streamers if it did well. Rockabye Baby was a top mixtape in 2013, but it was never sold online. In 2013, 2014, Deontay recalls that Cassie was asleep on the couch when Diddy arrived. I don't know if this was Cassie's house or a hotel room. It's not clear. But he was angry that Cassie was not answering her phone. Deontay says Diddy grabbed Cassie by the hair and started hitting her. Cassie, Deontay, and another assistant, Mia, not the woman's real name. She's Diddy's former assistant. She's also listed as one of his victims, hence why they're using an alias. But the three of them ran into the bedroom and tried to close the door to keep Diddy out. But he got in anyway, and he continued hitting and kicking Cassie. Deontay and Mia jumped on Diddy's back trying to stop him, but Diddy threw them off. Deontay says Diddy continued attacking Cassie until she hit her head on the bed frame and began bleeding. Diddy panicked when he saw the blood and he bellowed, "Look what y'all made me do." Deontay said he dialed 911, but someone, he can't remember who, told him to hang up before the call connected. He said Diddy made Cassie go to a plastic surgeon, and on the video call the next day, Deontay saw that Cassie had a gash near her eyebrow and stitches. Cassie testified about the same thing. 2013-14. Diddy arrived at Cassie's apartment. He took her to the bedroom. When they came out, Diddy grabbed Cassie by her hair and the back of her shirt and started pushing her out while telling her to get out of his house. I'm going to go ahead and assume he was paying for the apartment. He told Deontay to get out too. Deontay said, quote, he was more so popping me in the back of the head because I don't have hair and grabbing me by my shirt. Deontay went to his car and Cassie later joined him. He said Diddy berated them both, but eventually allowed them to leave. As they drove off, Diddy called them and told them to pull over. They did. Why people keep listening to this man is beyond, well, in fairness, like he's beating the shit out of everybody, but okay. Deontay said Diddy came to the window and told Cassie she, quote, fucked up and he would put sexually explicit videos of her on the internet. He also said that he would, quote, release them on schedule and he would start by sending the tapes to her parents' jobs. He said Cassie's brother was a bitch. He told Cassie that he, Diddy, was the only one that protected her. He said Cassie was in tears as they finally left. Did Cassie's brother do something to her? It would explain so much about why she tolerates this, why Diddy would tell Cassie he's the only one that protects her. Like, you beat the shit out of her, but you also pay for her whole life. Why is he calling her brother a bitch? What does he know about her brother? It's just a weird thing to say, like if you don't know something about somebody or think you know something about somebody. Deontay told Cassie to let Diddy release the tapes since he was on them too. Cassie said the tapes were of her and other men. She said she didn't want to have sex with the men, but, quote, Puff wanted her to. On another occasion, Deontay received a call from his boss informing him that he, the boss, and Diddy were on their way to Deontay's house. Deontay, who was with Cassie, dropped her off on Sunset so she could catch a cab. When the men plus Diddy's security arrived at Deontay's house, Diddy searched Deontay's house looking for Cassie. Deontay said, quote, he looked in the oven. I don't know why he looked in the oven. Deontay says Diddy also took his phone, which showed Cassie had been calling him from a nearby hotel. Diddy demanded that Deontay drive to the hotel while he followed and get Cassie to come outside. He did go to the hotel. Diddy's security went up to Cassie's room with Deontay. They both told her to go downstairs, and she said she would go over the balcony instead and walk toward it. It sounds like she's about to jump. Obviously, she's still with us, so he must have convinced her not to. But he did say Cassie did not go downstairs to Diddy. He said he was able to sneak her out a side door. Deontay said when he left the hotel, he saw a car following him. He said he turned off his lights and sped away, and he went to a different hotel to spend the night. He didn't think it was safe to go back to his house. He said when he did return home the next morning, his backpack had been stolen. It contained his ID, $1,000 in cash, and his iPad. Deontay said he would often help Cassie hide from Diddy, often at hotels. He said Diddy would blow everyone's phone up looking for Cassie. His chief of staff, Karina Koram, I know her as KK. I don't know her, but I'm familiar with stories about her as KK. He said KK would call saying Diddy had calmed down and it was okay for them to come back to the house. Deontay said he spoke to KK about the violence against Cassie. She said she would speak to Diddy, but nothing ever changed. Deontay never reported it to police out of fear of retaliation by Diddy. In fairness, right? Any time before really Cassie's lawsuit, if somebody had gone to the police and was like, hey, this is what happened to me. I need a restraining order. Like he beat me. Like I want to press charges, blah, blah, blah. They would end up in the same publicity shitstorm. Halle Bailey just did it. People are like, why don't you go to the police? Somebody's beating on you, go to the police. She did. She's in a media shitstorm where people are like, why are you lying on DDG? He's just trying to be a good father. Why are you trying to keep a good black man from his kids? Keke Palmer, her man was hitting on her. She went to the police. Same thing. People turned on her. It's not like if any of these people actually went to the police and was like, this is what's happening to me. He's abusing me. He's stalking me. Like I need a restraining order against Sean Combs of all people, as if people were going to, one, believe her, or two, protect her. Does anything about Diddy and anything about the stories that you hear about Diddy, whether you think it's racketeering or anything, like his own defense is like, hey, like, so he was on a lot of drugs and then he would like try to withdraw from the drugs that made him aggy. And then like he just in overall is like a violent person because he's like violent with everybody. And then also he has like a real jealous streak and like that's why he beats Cassie. Does anything about that sound like someone who like if you try to get a restraining order against them was actually going to abide by it? Why didn't she go to the police? Why would she go to the police? Like, what would they have done? Make a record of it? Cassie's mom called the police. What was done? Kid Cudi called the police. What was done? 2013, Diddy threw Deontay into a parked car during a video shoot for Cassie. Diddy previously told Deontay not to go out because Cassie would want to go too. Apparently, he went out or she went with him. Whatever. 2015, Deontay saw Diddy slap Cassie in a parking lot outside of a music studio. And after he said, "Get this bitch out of here." And Deontay took Cassie away. In 2016, Deontay saw Cassie at the Perfect Match premiere and he noticed, quote, the black eye under the makeup. He testified he would see bruises on Cassie's legs, arms, and neck quite often. Deontay said Cassie would go to a hotel with Diddy weekly. She would pack a black duffel bag with sex toys. Cassie said she didn't want to go, but Diddy, quote, wanted her to. He recalled Cassie's 29th birthday, where he overheard Diddy complain to Cassie she couldn't do, quote, this one thing. Cassie later explained to Deontay that Diddy was mad because she didn't want to do a freak off on her birthday. Later that night at Cassie's home, they'd all gone, I think, to karaoke and then went back to Cassie's house. Diddy confronted Cassie and then he told the group she was leaving with him. Cassie packed a bag of personal items and money. She told Deontay she had to go. She didn't have a choice. Deontay said both Cassie and Diddy appeared to be under the influence, but Cassie was more affected. Deontay stopped working for Diddy in 2018, but they keep in touch. Keep, present tense, in touch via phone and text. Deontay said he acts, quote unquote, loving towards Diddy despite his close friendship with Cassie. He also said he spoke to her as recent as yesterday to wish her congratulations on the birth of her third child. He also said he dressed her for her wedding. I don't know if he said he designed her wedding dress or he selected it, either or. But he's very close to Cassie. But they asked Deontay, they said, why do you stay in touch with him? Like, given all this history, like he hit you, he beat on Cassie, who's your friend, like why? And he said, quote, this man's sanity was my safety. It was just what I was used to. And he also added, quote, I don't hate him. The Washington Post notes, this is so petty, that Deontay's cross-examination had been dry. They said Diddy's attorney, Brian Steele, was seen nodding off. Deontay will return to the stand on Thursday, probably the day that you're listening to this podcast. Mia, who's come up a couple times today, she will also testify. So that brings us up to date through day 11 of the trial. I'll try to get you another bonus episode before another 6 days of testimony pass. My schedule is just really crazy right now. And again, I didn't plan for this trial to happen. I swore up and down that it wasn't going to happen. All right. That's the bonus episode. We'll be back. I don't know when, but we'll be back. All right. Bye.